All right, hey guys, Sam here, back with you. It's Thursday, the 14th of March, and by request, a look here at crude oil. So the request was to look at it via the USOIL CFD, so FX traders. That's how you trade it. Now, we've been over this a couple of times before, but just quick review here. I think that this impulse here is so clear. We can't miss that here. So just coming out of this ABC, it looks like we go 1, 2, here's the 3, 4, and we come down for the 5. And it's technical as well. So, and again, I've shown this before. So we length of the third. All right, so here's where you're looking for the 4, between the 23 and the 38. Here's the Vegas wave. We literally go into the lips of the Vegas wave before heading down. We get algo target here damn near to the tick. So we know we have a very technical impulse heading down coming out of this corrective action. Well, now coming out of that, right, so of course, what are we anticipating? Again, I've shown this before. I'm using the pivot before we come down. So I get this beautiful confluence here. So remember, an algorithm does not care about an Elliott count, it's just using dominant pivots. So this pivot here before we come down, it's hard to ignore this here. So look what happens at the 50, little reaction at the 50. We come up and they tag the 618 here. They get just a couple of ticks into the golden zone before we get that abrupt reaction. And then as I was showing you here, you can see this initial push up for so I've just got the wolf range on here. Let me pull this off so you can see that. So this is the range here. We come down, we tag the 50. Here's the negative 50, right? And here's exactly 100% of that initial range, right? So when you see that, all of that combined, and you add this, the algo pull here, get right on it, right to the golden zone. You're right on top of each other. Now this last little swing here, interesting, does not make the median line. Remember, trading principle number 4, a failure to make the median line here on this little swing here, is that creating a move equal to or greater than? Well, a little bit of a stretch there because we tagged it 3, 4, 5 times before heading down. But interesting, we come right down to that low. So interesting spot here. So hard to see this as anything other than just a 3-wave correction into technical confluence, the likes of which you dream of those, right? And then you look at the reaction, but it's essentially straight down. So that established, well, now this is it's much like the S&P, where you just look at it and go, how the hell is this thing going to keep going? So I'll even take this off here. So if this is well, let's just put this back on. So we get an algo target down here. All right. So here's there's an algorithm here that sold it here. I promise you that they sold it here. They will stay short until they get to this target, unless they're stopped out on the other side of the 65. Right. So you look and you go, well, is that reasonable that crude would be going to $7? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense, does it? Right? So now you got to look at that and think, well, okay, well, it didn't make sense when crude was down at $26, right? And then we pushed our way all the way back here to $77. Is it possible? Yeah, I mean, how do you? Again, it's staring you in the face, right? I had the same dialogue with the S&P. Perfectly technical pivot. I've got all the structure here. This implies that there's yet to be another move down. I don't see how else do we resolve it. So you might think, well, maybe that we could be A, B, C. No, it's just there's no other way to. Well, you hope, if you're in the any sort of business tied to the price of crude, you hope this is just an ABC, but boy, it's hard to wrap your head around it, right? Could crude be going down that far? Well, we certainly have a 1 wave that's gone in. So let's go down. Let me just go to the 12-hour here. This, oh God, there's so much here to nail that pivot here. This was also, where was it? Was it this one? Oh, yeah. So here's golden zone. We come back up, likely runs into the golden zone on the other side. So you have an algo fight here. They can't quite make target. I mean, there's just a confluence of indicators here that suggest that this is a significant pivot, right? And we have all of that nice structure here. We tag the 618. So what's the alternate? ABC, right, sure looks impulsive, right? You got now the 1, 2, you got to dig that out, but the 3, 4, 5, pretty solid. So you're anticipating. So with that established, Just like you would any chart, regardless of where we are in price or time. I've got an impulse heading down. Where am I looking for the retracement? Between the 50 and the 618. We are approaching. I mean, it's, yeah, I know. I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around it. Could we be going that far? Well, so this will be a tell. You know, if we're going to keep rolling here, how far are we going? Because this, let's pull this back together. So you might look at this and say, oh, well, maybe there's some sort of maybe a diagonal. So you look down here from the swing low to our technical pivot up here, and we have broken the golden zone. So meaning you lose the buy side algo, right? This algo stopped out. So what is that algorithm going to do? Or who I should say it this way. Whoever's behind this particular algorithm, what are they going to do next? Right? Well, so once they're stopped out, they just take the next 50. Where are we now? Now, that doesn't mean that it must pivot here. It doesn't mean we can't get through it. But I promise you there's going to be software that will kick in. We'll start selling there. It will defend right up to the golden zone. It gets on the other side. Then they'll be stopped out again, and then they'll just take the next 50. Right? They just do the same thing over and over and over again. I think this was a 50 if I'm not mistaken. Nope, didn't make the 50. So but didn't quite make it. This is shallow for a B wave. But then 2 and 3 almost got to second target. We lost the buy side, right? So the next trade that's setting up here. Now again, you got to use what's appropriate for your account size, your risk tolerance, your trading plan. But we are coming into, even if you just use some of these prior wicks here, this, or we look at it this way and say prior congestion looking here, and I can't get volume profile on a CFD, but we can just look here and say it's stalled there for a while. We're coming right back into this section. Prior resistance again. Well, if we get through it again, just because these are here doesn't mean you can't get through them. There's going to be stiff resistance right here in this pocket. So does it drive the market down? Well, technically, I think there's no certainty, guys. There is no absolute this must now go down. But what we have is a potential trade setting up. Right? That's all we're looking for. Is this a probability zone where I can put on a trade, define a reasonable risk reward, and get myself positioned to take advantage of what the technicals are suggesting? Right? No guarantees. No, this thing could keep going. There's nothing says that we can't just keep with shit. We could double top. There's lots of potential ways this could go. But if you're looking for a trade, knowing that the best I get is at least my own perception that there's a probability advantage, that I get a slight advantage based off of one, knowing what the algorithms are likely to do here, and the pattern repetition of an impulse corrected by a 3 followed by another, well, let's call it a motive wave, because we could have a diagonal here. Clear impulse, clear correction. Hard to call that as anything other than impulsive. It's certainly not corrective. Now, you could have something, if this is the A, we could have more complexity here. We could have something like that before heading down. So you can't just say, oh, we're going to pivot here and we're down to new lows. There can be complexity to this. So that's where breaking into that subdivision, I'm here on a 12-hour chart. So getting some sense of where we are here, this equally doesn't look terribly corrective. There's no retracement deep enough to go, oh, well, there's the obvious A, B, C. So there is definitely the potential that we are just putting in the A wave here. Remember, it's very common for the A to go to the 50. A, B, golden zone C. Right? It's certainly reasonable, but I wouldn't shy away from the sell here if you like the subdivision. So let's go take a look at that, because right now this is, well, the first thing that's setting up is a potential corner pocket. Right? So we've got this going in. If we're going to turn at the pivot here, right, we have to get to the golden zone to call it a golden, but we could have just a straight corner pocket here. If we pivot here, right, that's 80% probability of getting that median line. Now it's going to have to happen pretty darn fast, right? Given the way the framing is such here. So if this pulls over, if we get that more complex, if we get an A, B, C to get us to the golden zone, the 2 ends up being up here, and we get a golden corner, then it starts to feel like it might make sense a little bit more. All of this gets pushed over. So the time element, remember the market dictates the pivots here, of course. So you know, you bring it over here and you say, well, if we hit the 50 here, can we get there that fast? Doesn't seem likely. So I think that, you know, you got to just be aware of that here. So sure, you could go to a modifier, but let's go look at that subdivision. So I'm going to go down to the 4 hour here. Does this make sense as a potential completed correction? Well, of course, the immediate problem is we've had no really significant retracement. So a B wave, much like a 2 wave, you're looking for the high probability zone between the 50 and the 618. Well, certainly you can go deeper. You go to the 786, but we don't. This looks like maybe a 38. So with this as a candidate up here, so we'll leave that here. Our golden zone is marked by this prior support here as a candidate here. So does this look like A, B, C? Well, it looks like I've got a diagonal here. So it looks like I can get it here. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, maybe, right? So, but it certainly doesn't look like it. Well, maybe you could do this. Maybe you could do here. You'd have to have a very shallow B. So we'd have this as a completed A wave, very shallow B, and then maybe going up for the C here. I can't say I love it. Let's just let me get this. Put that in yellow. We'll go up a degree so we don't confuse ourselves. Okay, there we go. All right, so maybe, yeah, wouldn't be. You know, it's not the craziest thing I've ever seen. We don't even make the 38. It would be a very shallow B, and it actually looks. And we'll have to dig in here. So let's go down to the hourly. Do I have a B wave here? Well, some of this is a little tricky as it is because Crude is so prone to this kind of retrace. The very deep retracements are typical of Crude. So the fact that I'm here with just a shallow proposed B wave, let's look here. So actually, you may have to do it this way. So it looks like you'd have to go 1, 2, and this would be 1, 2. Looks like you might be 3, 4, 5 of the 3. I can get an A, B, C here. Then this gets a little tricky. Yeah, we could do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got a candidate here for the A wave. Now this A, B, C, right? You got 5 coming down. So you can get it. So you can go A, B, C here. Let's go, bear with me a sec. We'll go down a degree. It's worth doing this because you can just lose track, particularly if you keep them all in the same degree. Okay, so there's A, B, C. Here's the 5, the proposed 5 of the A wave. Now, you're already a little bit ill at ease with it because that's an unusually shallow B wave. Now, is this 1, 2? So let's wick this off and see if this makes sense. Well, so already, if that's 1, and I'm basing that on the depth of the retracement here. So we'd be looking at a diagonal here. So if that's 1, well, just shy of the 50, we've gotten 2 and through. So you'd have to, unless it's, well, let's look here. I'm already down on an hourly. That's the 1. It's a, boy, let's make sure I'm right on there. It looks like there's no way around that. If this is the 1, so let's look here. So if this is my C already, right? It's problematic here. So it looks like you'd have to, God, the 1 is already, or the 2 is here. So you'd have to go 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'd have a diagonal here as well. So you'd have a diagonal into the 1. No, maybe you can do it here. Let's look at it. So if we can get 1, 2, well, you can't. So you'd have to go 3, 4. So you'd have to do it as a, man, it's not going to work. So this, you can't go 1 here because you can't get an impulse here because of this. So man, you might have to go down to a lower time frame. So this is going to have to be your 1 here. So you're going to have to go 1, 2, Can you get it there? I don't think you can. So you got to go diagonal. So let's rethink that. You can't get this to play with this as your 1 because of this overlap here. So we'd have to trade it as a diagonal. So I guess we could do it. So we'd have to do it as a diagonal. So we could do it this way. So we could have, this could play as a 1, 2, 3, A, B, C into a 4. We're putting in the 5. So this would, come over here. And I got my 4 off. So let's get this. So this has to be A, B, C. Still an ugly 2. Then you'd have to go A, B, C. So we'd have to do it this way here. So you'd have to have A, B, C into that. Let's put that, let's go to yellow here. We'll go up a degree. Oh, that'll work. Okay, so we'd have to go, so here's the 1, 2, or you could do it this way. You'd still have an overlap because then you get a 3-wave here. So you got A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C. Yeah, that works. All right, so we can go A, B, C down here. Slight overlap, just enough. All it has to be is slight. So if this is our 1 here, it's close. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's check it. Remember, in a diagonal, we're looking for something technical between the start of the 1, the pivot of the 3. Is that technical enough for you? Okay, so where we sit right here. So this is interesting, right? Just barely overlaps here, right? And it's a little bit of a judgment call as to where the 1 is, but I don't think you can put it here because you don't have enough subdivision. You have to go A, B, C into the 1 for the diagonal to play. A, B, C into the 2. So this is, you're kind of accommodating it already to allow for the expanded flat here in the B wave, taking out the the wave 1 high. So I think you can go A, B, C into the 1, A, B, C into the 3, big A, B, C. So it's a, it's this way. Hang on a second. This is pros and cons of doing this on the fly. If that's A, B, C, so the problem with it, look at the symmetry here. So if this is your 4, right? Look at that compared to the 2 over here, A, B, C. So it creates the possibility here. Let's rethink it. Okay, so if that's too much, if that symmetry is too far off, we could have a double top into a 5 here. So this becomes the 4. Well, now that changes the count, right? So then you lose the diagonal. So you'd have to go, well, that's problematic unto itself. All right, so let's rethink it. So if that's, yeah, I see why you guys wanted a review on this. So if that's A, B, so we still have to accommodate the shallow B. So I can get an impulse into the A. So A, B, hang on a second. This is a tricky one. Okay, so if that's A, B, C into the B here. Now, if this is, with this still going, so I've got either, I've gone 1, oh shit, could that be 1, 2? I'm getting ahead of myself here. So if this is, well, again, same problem here. You'd have a very shallow, very shallow 2, but 1, 2, 3, 4, double top 5. I suppose you could have this as 1, 2. We could be just finishing. All right, so we could have A, B. Well, C could have more legs to it. So we could go like this. So this could be 1, 2. We're in the process of 3, 4, 5. So let's go up a degree. Oh, put that in white. Let's see if we can make sense of this. It's a tough one. Okay, let's go to subminuet. Okay, so if that's, let's see if that would fit. So let me go to a 2-hour. Does that fit? A, shallow B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I gotta go out to the 4-hour here and get a better look at this. Okay, so if this is our C and we've got 1 and we're in the process of carving out the correction, well, we've definitely gonna have some. Let's get these tightened up here. So here's so it could work, right? So here's the golden zone. Okay, so let's see. So we'd be going A, shallow B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's look here. Okay, so boy, I'm reluctant to go 1, 2, so I'm more inclined to go A, B, 1, 2. Okay, so if that's going to go 3, well, let's get our 2 up here because we could have certainly more in that. So the C, all of this could be going higher. So if that's 1, 2, since we're at the 50, let's just use our same thing we would do for any 1, 2. If that's the length of the 1 into a double top, 50% retracement. Well, 100 is right here. So the minimum requirement for this to play as a 3 relative to the 1 would be right here. Here's your prime zone here. Now we're on the other side of the golden zone. So then you'd lose the sell side algo. So do we get there? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Maybe we do something like this. If we're going to get a shorter 3 for, do we get through? It'll be interesting to see. So we're already coming up to resistance. Here's the big 50. But boy, this correction is, it's tough to break it down. But if you just look at it there, it does look more like the symmetry here would play as an A. It's the shallow B, and then we get more in the C here. So the part of the challenge here is that this is an exact 50. So it looks like this is not done. So let me zoom back in here to see what I mean. So this 50 is correcting this move here. So either you've got to allow for just very unusual symmetry with the 4 being so much beyond the second here, if indeed that's correctly identified. Is there anything else here that I'm... Well, you'd have to change this, so you wouldn't have an ABC in here, so now you have to get a diagonal. God, this is a bitch. Okay, so we could go... Well, let's zoom in here. Let's go to a 2 hour. That's a tough one. Okay, so 1, 2, 1, 2. So you can get the third. So you could get the subdivision here. Let me go to yellow here. So we can go 1, 2. You'd have to do 3, 4, 5. Now that's way too big. Let me get that. Let's go sub-micro. Okay, so can that play? So you can go 3, 4. You're going to allow for a very skinny 5 of 3. But you don't threaten, so you can get your 3. We don't threaten the 1 here, so that's deep. So that's 2 to the 3. What do we do here? So we don't crack it. We're between the 50 and 60. It's deep for a 4, then up for a double top. So we fail, right? So it makes you second guess it a little bit here. So pulling all the way from the low now with the perfect 50 that plays as a 2, meaning so you'd have a double top into the 1, ABC into the 2. We're going up for the 3. We already did the minimum targets. We know we can use the negatives. Well, let's do it this way. Let's get it dialed up. So if this is 1 and that's 2 here at the top of this range, that's our minimum requirement for a 3 so that it's longer than the 1. We don't have a 5 to compare to. So if we're going to come down here, we could have a diagonal. If this is in a C wave, we could have a diagonal. So we could overlap the 1, but you just do a standard, your expectation would be something typical, not atypical. So if I pull from the 2, from the 2 to the proposed 3, please, thank you, up here, 38 would make it. And then we'd have an algo target up here just ahead of it. So we could finish the C wave. God, these things are not responsive. Okay, so we could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would finish it. So let's pull that all the way back out and see if that makes sense. Well, if this is the 1, this would be an interesting second going in here. It certainly plays, given the length of that 1, to have a deeper retracement wouldn't surprise me terribly. So it doesn't look like it's ready to turn over here. By working through that subdivision here, it doesn't make me want to jump all over the sell at the 50. Even though, right, remember, algorithm will not care, doesn't care. It's just going to start to sell at the 50 and defend to the 618. So this looks like we could be, and we can give it a little more symmetry here. something like that. So you'd have a little, you know, you see this would be parity between the 1 and the 3. 4, 5 would put us up to the 2. So that's a contender. So as we bump into the 50, so you're not at a spot here with the 50 looming above and the first algo target sitting right there. You can see it's right on top of the 50. From this 50, can you see that? So from this 50 here, all right, this target is right here at the 50. So you wouldn't want to be a buyer here right in front of that. Now, again, just because it's there doesn't mean we can't get through it, but you're likely to get a reaction there. So when we're sitting here at 58.73 with the target at, there's another 40, 50 ticks there. So you know, I wouldn't buy it there. I'm going to say it that way. Why? You're about to bump into major resistance. I'd wait and see what happens here. So if this is if we were to get, so let's say we hit that target, we get another 50. Well, maybe that's the 1, 2 of the 3, and the 3 is going higher. You just don't have enough, right? So you're too late to the party for the buy off of this 50, right? From this swing low to that 50, right? You certainly don't want to chase it here. You're about to bump into a 50 and hit that target that this algorithm that bought here is going to start selling upon. Additionally, well, so take note here. So you're going to have one algorithm that's going to kick in to sell here and another that's going to kick in to take profit, i.e. sell. So you're likely to have some pretty stiff resistance as we approach it. And in addition, we've got this cluster here of prior resistance. So you got a lot of things suggesting, right, if you remember from earlier when we had that little congestion pocket from way, way, way back. I don't even know if I can get it on the screen. I probably can't. But you'll recall when we drew it up here. So you have a lot of resistance that we're just charging right into, not to mention just the 50 from the top. You're halfway back. So the subdivision has me reluctant to be a seller here, but I sure do like it up here. If we get up to 63, let's call it 63.50, boy, that's going to look very solid here. You've got structure, you'd have pattern, the subdivision would play, and that is going to set you up for this move here. That algorithm is going to be after that. So that not likely long enough to be, well, it could be, I guess. Let's just look at it. So if we go here, if we go from the 1 and if we were to pivot at the golden zone, well, the 100 is going to be lower. So to get that to play as a third, you'd be going beyond the algo target. So something to pay attention to. You'd have, right, as we were just drawing it up here, the potential for the golden corner here. Right, so maybe you get there here. That looks like it's going to be sort of abrupt. So maybe it has to hit lower. And now you're back into, really, could crude go that low? Well, here, if you're going to get a true third, here's the, right, as I often will tell you, the negative 100, that's your shorthand. So you know approximately where the 1618 is going to be. If you're going to get a true third, that's what you're looking at. And that, you know, you start putting a date range on that, well, that's well out in time. I can't even see, when you give me a date, it's that far out. But you know, so you look at it and you go, well, if this were any other chart, if this were something where you weren't like, God, could crude go that low? You'd be all over this sell. So, but you look at it in crude thinking, well, is it possible that crude could go that low? Doesn't seem likely though, does it? Yet there it is, right? There's the trade just staring you in the face. Right? Oh, shit, that was my title for the S&P. Like, how is it possible? Are we going to keep going? We're going to go 11, 12 years into this trend? Yeah, that's not what the technicals suggest. But there you go, right? So I wouldn't say, if you were going to do it, I wouldn't do it unhedged, right? Anything in crude, you want to consider hedging it because of the shit happens kind of thinking. I wouldn't be unhedged short crude. So I'd hedge, if it was me, I'd hedge it with an option. But if we're going to come up to this golden zone, you're waiting for the trade that you want to do in the CFD, I'd use the much lower risk associated with selling front run on the 618, stop on the other side of the 65. You know, if you're doing it with a CFD, you're probably just fine. And then with some fairly deep targets down here, which defy what seems like it would make sense. But, you know, again, $26 didn't make sense when we were there a couple of years ago. So, you know, ignore this. So so you're going to say, oh, shit, it doesn't make sense to me. So you can say, well, screw it, I'm not going to trade crude. Fine, nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking here, you know, it's right there waiting for you. There's a beautiful potential trade. So ignore it at your own peril. What are you really ignoring? If you say, I don't get it, I don't think it makes sense, well, it's just opportunity cost. All right, how many times is crude going to set up that well? Well, we'll see. All right, guys. Now, God, I went long-winded today. It's just some unusual analysis here. Not in that the technicals are unusual. It's that it's getting incredulous. It's getting hard to imagine, can this S&P move continue to just go relentlessly higher? Can crude go below $20? Yeah, anything's possible, guys. All right, talk to you later.